All right, so today we're going to talk about a hidden war, one that's happening inside millions of people as we speak. We're going to get into the clever and, yeah, sometimes kind of brutal science of how we fight back against parasitic worms. Think about that for a second. For millions of people all over the world, it's not just a question, it's a reality. There's this invisible battle going on inside their own bodies against some of nature's most stubborn invaders. And this is a huge deal. We're talking about a major global health issue. The official scientific term for these parasites is helminths, and, really understanding them is the first step to beating them. So let's get to know these unwanted guests. Because the old saying, to win the fight, you have to know your enemy. A helminth is basically the ultimate freeloader. Seriously, it moves into a host, like a person, and just survives by feeding on them. It gets food, it gets protection, and in the process, it completely messes with the host's ability to get the nutrients they need. So these worms, they basically come in two main flavors. On one side, you have the nematodes, which are the roundworms. Think pinworms, hookworms, those guys. And on the other side, you've got the plotty helminths, or flatworms. This is where you find the more infamous ones like tapeworms and flukes. And trust me, knowing which family you're up against is absolutely key to choosing the right weapon. Okay, so it's not just about what the invader is, it's also about where it decides to set up shop. The location of that infection, it completely changes the game plan. You see, some worms, like pinworms and tapeworms, are pretty happy just hanging out in the intestines. But others? Oh, they're way more invasive. They'll actually burrow into our tissues, our muscles, even our organs, causing nasty diseases like trichinosis or schistosomiasis. And that distinction is beyond crucial for treatment. All right, so how do we fight back? This is where the science gets really, really cool. We have this class of drugs called Anthelmintics, and they use some seriously brilliant strategies to kick these parasites out. Tactic number 1. It's simple, and it's brutally effective. Just paralyze them. The thinking here is pretty straightforward. If a worm can't hold on, it can't survive. So these paralyzer drugs work in a couple of different ways. Pyrantel, for instance, acts as a neuromuscular agent. It basically just jams up the worm's muscle control. Others, like ivermectin, go after the flow of ions in their cells, which causes this total, fatal paralysis. And once the worm loses its grip, the body's natural processes just flush it right out. Problem solved. Okay, but what if you can't just paralyze them? Well, then you move on to tactic number 2. You cut off their supply lines. You starve them. And this is the elegant strategy of a drug like mebendazole. What it does is it specifically blocks the worm's ability to soak up glucose, which is its main source of energy. It's just like cutting a fuel line. No energy, the worm dies. And the really brilliant part is that it's designed to target the worm cells while leaving our own cells pretty much alone. And that brings us to our third main tactic, which is maybe the most insidious of them all. It doesn't just attack the muscles or the food supply, it attacks the very structure of their cells from the inside out. So a drug like albendazole works by stopping the worm from building these little internal structures called tubules. You can think of these as the steel beams of a skyscraper. They give the cell its shape, its function. By preventing their assembly, the drug causes the entire cellular framework to just collapse. It's targeted internal sabotage. All right, so we've got our 3 main tactics: paralyze, starve, and sabotage. Now let's line up the specific weapons in our arsenal. Okay, so here's how it all comes together. For pinworms and roundworms, we can starve them with mebendazole or paralyze them with Pyrantel. But against a formidable foe like the pork tapeworm, we can deploy albendazole to sabotage its cells from within. See? Each drug is a specialized tool for a specific job. Okay, let's make this super practical. Let's talk about winning the war against one of the most common invaders out there, the pinworm. Yeah, you might actually be surprised to hear that pinworms are the single most common worm infection right here in the United States. This isn't some distant, far-off problem. It's a practical health issue that can affect almost anyone, especially families with young kids. Now, while the drugs are the primary weapon, winning the pinworm war means you have to fight on a second front: hygiene. The whole goal here is to break the cycle of reinfection. The eggs can survive on surfaces for weeks, so a super strict routine of hand washing, showering, and disinfecting is absolutely critical to make sure the parasites are gone for good. So, when you step back, it's pretty amazing. We have this arsenal of drugs that can paralyze, starve, and sabotage these parasites. But this battle against helminths is ancient, and it is far from over. As we get smarter at fighting them, they evolve to survive. And that leaves us with a final thought. With things like drug resistance on the rise, what new, even cleverer tactics will we need to invent for the next chapter in this fight?